Hi, YouTube, and anyone who catches the replay. Hi, how are you? I hope your day's been blessed. I want to talk about a serious subject that goes on in a lot of homes these days. That's just not talked about enough. And what it is the balance between loving your children and your spouse, without allowing the two to intertwine, where one or the other feel neglected in any way. First and foremost, I want to start by saying this. Your children will always be your children. Your spouse may not always be your spouse. Okay? So, to me, and again, this is just my opinion, it's never okay to let your love for your spouse overshadow the love you have for your children. Now, of course, we all know one day your kids will get grown and gone, and it'll just be you, hopefully, you and that spouse. So you, of course, you want to keep things spicy. You want to make sure that you give them the attention that they need in order to keep you all flourishing within that particular relationship. But again, the relationship with your spouse and your children should never intertwine. You being a father or a mother should never be compromised by being a spouse, a girlfriend, a baby mama, baby daddy, or whatever. It just should never intertwine. At the end of the day, it's so many children that feel neglected because their parents are so invested in keeping their spouse happy that their children fall by the wayside. And most of them do it unconsciously. They are just trying to fulfill a need within their self. But like even for me, nothing in this world could come before my children, the ones that I've bared, the ones that I gave life to. I definitely find time to be with my spouse and of course speak life into him and pour into him, but the love between the two does not intertwine. When you grow up in a home where your mom is so fixated on her spouse that it blinds her to the things that she still needs to do for her children as a mother, because she's so fixated on him being unfaithful, or when he's not there, her mind can't even focus on her kids because she want to call him, text him, find out where he at. So she's so invested in that that her children are just running wild. Um, and she don't tune back into them until they do something that she doesn't like, or that's that causes them harm, or they get hurt or something like that. Then she wants to run and care for them. But the whole time she's been so fixated on this man that the time that she should have been using while he was away to pour into her children, she didn't use it for that. She still used that time that should have been for her children to worry about this man, or vice versa, this woman. You have to know how to spread love within your home equally, but separate. Because love you have for your spouse and love you have for your children should not be the same on any level. I don't care what nobody say. How could you ever love your spouse more than you love your children, the people that you've given life to? That makes zero sense to me, and nobody can make that make sense to me. So don't try, please. I see so many people will compromise their children just to be with a person. Like, how that work? Like, what kind of chemistry imbalance is in your brain that will make you think this person, oh, I can sacrifice my child to be with this person because this person satisfy my needs sexually? Because that's really all that would be the difference. They give you sex, and your children, of course, don't. But that shouldn't weigh so heavy that you would choose this person over your children. Because you know what happens is your children grow up and then they have children of their own. And they work so hard to either one, either one, they become just like you and inflict that same mental abuse and anguish on their own children, or two, they grow up and they be like me. This is something I'm working on because my whole life I watched my mom be like that. And what it did to me is it kept me from allowing the man I'm with to be a productive father, to be to actually lead his household, because I felt like, okay, if the children do something wrong, and a lot of times they needed discipline, but in my eyes, I felt like I had to protect them because I never wanted them to feel like I was putting him first. So instead of growing up to be a person that can function in society and separate the two successfully, I had to fail a lot at it to finally understand that some of the times I should have stepped back and let him be a father. A lot of the times I should have just kept my mouth closed and allowed him to be a father, because nothing that he was doing was to their detriment. It was him being a father, him being a disciplinarian, him trying to teach them and prepare them for the world. But me, I felt like I always had to run and protect them. I feel like I always had to run and, you know, be their barrier or protect them from someone that I didn't even need to protect them from, because he would have never done them any harm. But because of what she did to me and what I watched. See, this is what I said when I say you bring your childhood traumas into your adulthood unconsciously until you grow and you get more wisdom, and then you finally see what you've been doing. You self-reflect and you look at yourself like, what could I may have done differently in my life that could have helped my children turn out different, my children be more appreciative of stuff, um, my children not take so many things for granted, um, my children value people more. And then it all came back to that. You could have just been quiet. And it was maybe some things that he brought in from his childhood that he may could have taught you if you would have allowed him to, because he was brought up in a different atmosphere. See, sometimes as parents, none of us are perfect. There's no handbook to raising children. So sometimes you're going to get it wrong. And also, your definition of raising your children may not be my definition of raising my children, but they don't have to be the same, because your children are your children, and my children are my children. As long as whatever we're doing is not to their detriment, we can't tell nobody how to raise their kids, period. Well, what I'm speaking on is the trauma you cause by being selfish and self absorbed and only doing what makes you feel good and not taking into accountability that everything you do, either positively or negatively, affects your offspring. Whatever you put out into the world is what comes back, and sometimes it don't hit you, sometimes it hit those babies and they haven't even had a chance to make their own mistakes. Your mistakes hinder them, their future. Your mistakes hold them down. Your karma blocks them from what they need to do, or even walking into their season and their time. They have to go through turmoil and trials and tribulations for bridges you burned. Let your children have a voice. If your baby tell you, well, mama, I feel like you're doing this or that, don't be so quick to say, oh, you grown, get out of my face, or don't listen. Like, they can't have a voice. They're a person too. They grow up into adults, and they will remember. They will remember how you treated them. They will remember how you pushed them off. They will remember how you put this man or woman before them, and they'll never forget. And one thing about it is God will make you revisit it at some point in your life. He will make you revisit it, because those same children may be the same children that have to wipe your behind when you get older. And you think they're going to do it with pride? Just because you their mama or daddy don't mean that you can mistreat them. Just because you their mama or daddy don't mean that you can shut them out. Just because you their mama or daddy don't mean that you can devalue what they say or devalue how they feel. I've always had an open, I've always had an open relationship with my children where they can talk to me about things, whether I like it or don't like it. I've always told them, just be honest with me, because I'm not perfect. I've been through so much in my life. So I know how the pressures of the world can get heavy and can weigh heavy on you. And I know sometimes kids can go down the wrong path. It doesn't make them a bad kid. Sometimes they just need to be strayed back the right way. Also, sometimes in life we go through so much, even with the kids of this generation, it will make you just be like, I ain't helping no child. I don't care. These kids too disrespectful. These kids, because they are different. This is a different genre of children. They have zero, a lot of them have zero respect for adults. They curse in front of adults. Um, you can't just sit them down and talk to them. They be like, oh, you old. Well, I don't want to listen to you. They don't have no sense of care for human life. And you know what I think broke that was the fact that these kids now are raised on electronics. There's very seldom. See, when we were growing up, we built relationships with our neighbors and the kids in our neighborhood. We was outside after school. You did your homework. You went outside. You rode bikes. You built relationships. Sometimes you stayed the night at your friend's house. You made sure your behind was in the house before the street lights came on, or your mama could knock on that door and get you, snatch you up out the house. But the neighbors all knew each other. The neighbors, it was actual villages back then. They see your child doing something, they'll hold your child accountable and come let you know, oh, I caught such and such doing such and such. And it wasn't no, oh, don't put your hands on my child. Oh, don't yell at my child. But y'all do that. But then as soon as your child do something or your child has end up in a bad situation, then you expected someone to step in. But if someone would have really stepped in, you would have probably wanted to fight them or jump down their throat or analyze how things happen. Listen, the villages are needed these days. These children are leaving here faster than their parents, and it was never meant to be like this. And some of these children are hurting. One of the things that do cause that hurt is, like I said, they be so their parents so invested in their spouses that they forgetting about their children. How can you forget about something that you gave life to? How can you forget about one of the biggest blessings God will ever in your life give you? A part of yourself. See, a lot of you all slowly kill your children's mental just in the bringing up process because you make them feel so less than that they don't value themselves. The first man or woman that shows interest in them, they jump on the bandwagon. They feel like, and sometimes a lot of times the girls feel like, okay, he interested in me, giving him my body. If he say, oh, it's good or whatever, that's all she worth. We have to go back to the times when these babies really, and I can't even say go back to the times because again, in my time of coming up, it was children were to be seen, not heard. So I can't even say go back to the time. We need to create a new time, create a new era where we put these kids in the spotlight. We put them on Front Street. We hold them accountable for what they do. We hold them accountable for their actions. We let them know that there's a chance at the future, no matter how dark the future may look. There's a chance. I fight with this every day with my teenage boys. Just trying to convince them that there is a chance. Regardless of what it may look like, you still have a chance. And they constantly like, oh my, you don't know the world we live in. Oh my, things ain't like when you was coming up. These boys, they'll start something, but they don't want to fight these days. They want to shoot you or they want to do, they want to take your life from you. It's just not like when you run, you don't understand. And they may be right. I may don't understand because back in my days, if kids had a disagreement, not encouraging fighting, but that's what they did. They fought. Next day, sometimes they was friends. These days, it's not like that. These babies are bringing firearms to school. Like they just have no value for human life at all. It's like they're not even looking for tomorrow. They don't care what the future brings because something has gone wrong. Something has crushed these baby spirits almost beyond repair. And that's what we have to figure out. What is it that has done this? Why our babies are not looking forward to tomorrow? What is making them feel like their life is not worth living? What is making them not look forward to being husbands and fathers or successful businessmen, successful entrepreneurs, going off to college? What is making them feel like I'm only living for today? The chances of tomorrow coming are slim. Like, come on, they babies. These are teenagers that care zero about tomorrow. They living in today. And that's sad because these babies should have thousands of tomorrows coming. But every day you see a baby leaving here, a teenager being shot down, or a teenager taking the weapons to school and becoming a state property for the rest of their life. As parents, we have to change. We have to pay more attention to these babies. And not saying be submissive, because some of these children are very vindictive. Now, don't get me wrong. Some children are very, very, very vindictive. They use the love that you have for them against you completely. And anytime you do try to step up and put your foot down and make you feel like they hate you or you don't care about them. But then they go out into the world and the people tell them the same thing. Oh, so you got a spanking. Oh, so we're gonna call DSS or whatever and get you taken out of your home for a spanking. And be shot down in the street like animals with no regard to who they are, who they belong to, that they somebody's baby, and people can walk away scot free with taking your baby life. Do you understand that? People can walk away scot free for taking and they have taken your baby's life. And you mean to tell me a lot of times y'all use the time to not just pour into them and love on them? A change has got to come to try to save what we have left. I pray over my babies. I pray over your babies. I pray over everybody babies. That this world shifts and that our babies' mental change for the better. And for the babies that are doing good, great, good for them. But it's so many that's not. They're not mentally okay and they need help. But again, a lot of grown-ups have gotten to the point that they pull back. They just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with the disrespect for children. They don't want to deal with the disobedience. They don't want to deal with the lack of wanting to listen. But we can't give up. But again, learn how to balance your love for your spouse or your significant other and the love for your children. Learn how to balance that. It has to be a balance, and those two should never intertwine. Never make your children feel like you have to neglect them to love on somebody else. If you ain't got enough love to give everybody, choose your children. Be single, be alone, choose your babies. But they should never be the sacrifice. Or wait till they grown and gone and then get in a relationship. But they should never be the sacrifice for you to love up on somebody else or for somebody to cuddle up with you at night. You made a choice. You made a promise when you decided to have that child. You had a choice not to. So when you chose to have a child that did not ask to be here, you chose to be the one they're protecting. You chose to be the one to love them. You chose to be the one to comfort them. You chose to be the one to be there for them. Do your job. Do the job you signed up for because they didn't ask to be here. And stop making excuses. It's healing time.